And the reason for this, I'm betting, is not so much that there wouldn't or couldn't be a better place for you. You have got to stop romanticizing the idea of moving and living in Europe. It definitely will not solve all of your problems. Christopher back with another video. Subscribe if this is your thing. Scouring through YouTube as I usually do, I again ran across a video where people were interviewing Americans and asking them what they thought on living in Europe or what they thought of Europe in general. Though a good amount of people had real legit answers on what they thought of Europe, and many of them wanted to one day move to somewhere in Europe, a lot of the answers that I did see from people sounded exactly like they were witnessed from untrained eyes and unexperienced people. And I can see where a lot of that might have come from, being that I'm an American and I came from the same situation. So I'm not judging, but I did want to talk on this because it just seemed to me that a lot of American people are just misguided on what it is and what it's like to live in Europe. And since YouTube is going to YouTube, it suggested other videos, which I also watched because I wanted to contrast and compare the different answers between the different interviews. And it was different companies and different channels doing the interviews. One of the interviews even went back to the COVID time, and people were answering according to how some countries in Europe were handling the COVID and how America was handling COVID at the time. If you recall, there were some countries in Europe that, how should I say, weren't completely sold on changing their society completely for the COVID. And so in that particular video, you had Americans answering some of these questions according to their personal perspectives and feelings on that. Also, I want to hold a little bit of accountability on myself because if you look back at the history of this channel, I too have maybe slightly romanticized the idea of moving to Europe. I live in Germany, so this channel was primarily boosting Germany based stuff like all the time. Now, it's not that a lot of those things have changed or that I've changed my mind on the feelings I have for the country that I live in. It's just that if someone is constantly feeding you the positives and the good things all the time about a particular place or anything, to be quite frank, you kind of get in your mind, or should I say, you might never consider because you don't have the thing that compels you to look at the other side. And there indeed may be other sides to the thing that's being spoken so highly about. In fact, there are. Always. There is no place, there is no thing, there is no person that's going to be perfect and good and positive in all aspects. That's just not the way things work, yo. So I do want to hold a little bit of accountability to myself for the promotion that I've done in the past that's been nothing but positives and good things. Although I did sprinkle things that are not so positive, nevertheless, I've done this too. So the basic thing before I get into anything else I want to say is keep your expectations in check and always expect life to life you up. You ain't special. So when you even talk to some Europeans who have moved away from their European country into maybe the US or some Asian country or Australia, some of them can even say that they don't understand this great romanticization. They don't understand this romanticization by Americans or anybody because they actually lived the European lifestyle and it was too much for them. They had to go. So they can't even see what some people are even talking about when they're talking about how great it is, how different it might be, how much better life might be if they could do that. Now, I know one could argue that one's upward mobility chances in, say, like one of the Nordic countries compared to, one of the countries in the US are vastly different. So that person in the US has only that place to compare it to, and it just looks like a dream to them from where they are. I mean, but still, some people just can't handle things and they need to find a better way. And the truth is, there are people that leave European countries for a better way. Let me read you guys an example of what it looks like when people romanticize Europe on social media. POV. You escape the rat race and move to Europe. Your cost of living is 3 times less. The entire city is a piece of art. You're living off sangria and tapas. You're laughing at the beach till sunrise and falling in love with life again. There's so many things I can find wrong in this. And it's not even to say that this particular person doesn't do those things and isn't living those things, but there's definitely a whole bunch of shit left out. I will tell you that right now. Let me just go one by one real quick. So you escape the rat race and move to Europe. Fine. Your cost of living is 3 times less. Where do you live? Is it 3 times less wherever you go in Europe? They didn't put any specifics that makes a person go, oh, 3 times less. I want that. The entire city is a piece of art. Come on now. This person hasn't visited every city, and they said the entire city is a piece of art. So what city are you in? Because I guarantee you, 3 cities, towns, villages over, it's probably not as artistic. It's probably pretty shitistic. There are slums here. That it happens. They may look a little bit different, but every place ain't just artistic. You're living off sangria and tapas. Again, who is that even attractive to? I don't particularly gravitate towards either of those things. And have you met everybody? There's some people out there living on bread. There's some people out there living on pizza. There's some people out there living on donuts. Some people out there living on asparagus. And most people out there, just like anywhere else, are living off multiple things, not just tapas and sangria. But in this thing, they chose 2 things that they figured people would be attracted to because maybe they are, and they chose to just mention those things. It's like when people say, oh, you can live in the tropics and just drink drinks out of coconuts. It ain't always that way. Sometimes they'll throw your shit in a jar. You're laughing at the beach till sunrise and falling in love with life again. If this person did that, they probably did it once. Every other night, they ass is in a bed. Ain't nobody sleeping out on no cold ass, wet ass, dark ass beach multiple times. Stop it. And it ain't the only way to fall in love with life again. Maybe somebody tried that and they absolutely hate it, and that made them hate life. Now they want to just go back to the city. So that's just one example about how living in Europe, whatever country, is over romanticized in not only these articles and interviews that I see on video, but all over social media. Now let me go back and address something, because I said in the beginning of this video that I was once one of these people. The way we see Europe from America while in America, rarely is it shown or displayed or advertised in a scumbag manner. I'll just be honest. It's kind of the reverse of when people see America here, not counting the news, and they see only the highlights, the goodness of New York, living in New York City as a rich person, goodness of living in California as a rich person, movie star life, and they think that everybody lives like a Hollywood person. A lot of people do kind of get it, and they understand that that's just only TV. But on the reverse side, what we see of Europe, it's rarely ever shown in kind of a scummy kind of manner. It's always the beautiful architecture of some countries. It's always the beautiful, wide, open landscapes. It's always the elegance and quaint of smaller villages and towns. But what's rarely seen, at least from what I see, is the other side of that. Like how Africa is usually portrayed, because in most cases in the States, Africa is painted as this terrible place to be. Poor, desert, pirates, no water, no food. You name it. So it's the reason I said in the beginning of the video that I'm not really blaming people. I get it, but truth has to be told, and it does have to stop. More research has to be done, more videos like this, more channels like this that talk about every aspect of it and not just boost only the good things. You can even take channels similar to mine where Americans have moved to Germany and other places in Europe. Most of the content that's made, especially in the beginning of the journeys of those channels, is shock based, because there's such a vast difference between the things that they came from and the new things that they're experiencing. So there's a certain excitement that comes along with that, and you just want to talk about it. I get that. And in the beginning, you're not really looking at the bad things. You have a tendency to ignore that stuff, even if it's happening at the same time in them early stages, because the good things are just so good. You're able to kind of have an armor for the bad things right now until you get comfortable and until you get used to all the good things. Then you're able to see, wait a minute, don't really like that. So real quick, I won't go deep into this, but one of those things for me is the entrepreneurship life and the self-employment life. It was kind of a kick in the face of discovery to find out that it's not as easy here as it would have been back in the States. And not that there weren't other things, but that's for another video. So what this over-romanticization, am I even saying that right? So what over-romanticizing particular places tends to do to a lot of people is it kind of sets them up for failure and disappointment, because you have Americans that move to some of the more popular destinations, Italy, Portugal, France, Greece, those places, Germany, and then there it happens, even if not straight away, 1, 2, 3 years down the road, somewhere between that 1 to 3 year mark, they get that kick in the balls or the ovaries of realization. They start looking around and be like, wait a minute, I'm still poor. I still have anxiety. I'm still no good with the ladies or the fellas. My house is way smaller. The big vehicle I actually wanted, I can't buy because it won't fit on this street. I can't see those artistic hillsides I saw in the movies from this small ass village I live in. My neighbors are judging me because I'm American. And there you have it. In my opinion, the idea of moving to another country should be based on nothing more than what would bring you ultimate peace in your life. If your bottom line isn't a peaceful lifestyle, then you might be doing it for the wrong reasons. And for the people who have done it, I understand your excitement. You want to talk about it. I would never try to tell people not to talk about something that excites them. Maybe try to include a little bit of realness into it and not be so exaggerated with all the good things that you found. You couldn't healthily survive for a long period of time on sangria and tapas. So be a little more realistic. You're not sleeping on the goddamn beach every night. I'm not addressing that again. So my fellow Americans, rarely will you be able to just run away from the capitalism and consumerism into another country and just not have any struggles at all. There's going to be some struggles. Not everything is rosy and peachy. Not everything is just going to be a walk in the freaking park. You'll struggle a little bit, just like I did in this video right here if you want to check that out. Otherwise, you can take a look here. Click something. Go ahead.